the strongest supporters of the pro-life movement tend to be, in America, the religious. And yet, these are the same people who bay for the death penalty for whatever they can get away with. I've always thought that that's somewhat contradictory, or at least ironic. What's going on with these people? At one end of life, they desperately wanted it, and the other, oh no, kill them.
I think it's an interesting question. I think it deserves more research. I think what we'll find is not going to be one particular answer. I think if you look at the opposition to abortion, the opposition is particularly vehement by men. And we know that men are biased towards trying to control the reproduction of women. And I think that's an element of it. I think also the idea that they've been told, and part of the religious belief is that they're killing a person. And so that taps into that moral inferential system about not harming, do no harm, but don't kill somebody. It's the same reason we back away from pushing the guy off the bridge. So for the religious, that embryo is a fully formed person. They've been made to feel that that embryo is a fully formed person, don't harm. So I think we can see some of the reasons for the opposition to abortion, particularly making the fetus a person, tapping into don't kill the person. Now, why they're bloodthirsty at the other end of life, again, I think deserves research. I think it probably taps into attitudes of justice, of vengeance, of revenge. Why killing? I think the truth is we do have homicide mechanisms in our mind. And David Buss in particular and Joshua Duntley, I think, have done a very good job of mapping those out, that we don't care to accept it, but most of us, men and women, particularly men, have very specific homicide mechanisms, homicide adaptations in their mind. And so religion is somehow hijacking that and utilizing that in the pro-death penalty. So again, I think it's going to be complicated and will probably vary among individuals and a particular individual's history. But those would be some of the mechanisms that I think probably come into play.
There's another one that sprung to mind as you were just making those comments, and that is going back to this idea of Christian values. I would have thought that if it wasn't just the Ten Commandments and they were to expand upon this, those advocates of Christian values would probably include looking after your neighbor. What I find odd, again, in relation to America, is the concept of looking after your neighbor doesn't seem to extend to giving them health care. What is going on in America with this refusal to give health care to people who quite clearly need it?
Again, I think we want to try to understand it. I think we want to research it. My speculations would be that churches are primarily, religions are primarily social organizations. And I think, for instance, the greatest supplier of social welfare in this country, I think, is the Mormon Church. And I think they feel threatened. So if you give health care, you're intruding upon religion's view of taking care of people. I think there's going to be a book coming out this spring by Jonathan Haidt called Righteous Minds. And I think his work is worth looking at, because what he's done is to try to parse apart, is to try to find the various elements of morality, both in general, but then also to look at the elements of morality that you find in the left, liberals, and the elements of morality that form the basis of conservatives, the Republicans. And I know he addresses this issue. I just can't pull it up to mind right now, but we have various elements of morality. fairness, sacredness, hierarchy, deference to authority. He maps them all out, and he shows that with the conservatives, they tend to use sort of all five, whereas liberals tend to be more focused on elements of fairness and justice, and how that plays into the religious right wanting to deny people health care. He's going to have a better explanation than I do.
Well, I'm sorry to have thrown that one at you. I know it's not one that I'd pre-prepared you for.
No,
but
well,
if you come up with a paper,
don't
I'll
apologize.
certainly add it.
Don't apologize for it, because I'm a physician, and one of the most distressing things I see is the healthcare system in the United States, and the fact that we've got the abilities at the best healthcare in the world. I mean, we lead the world in the science of healthcare. And we're just so abysmal at the delivery of healthcare, and that you've got, what is it, a quarter of the population that's uninsured? I mean, that's criminal in my mind.
Yeah, to what extent it's religious, I don't know, because when they introduced the National Health Service in this country, the people that opposed it were the doctors and the insurance companies. And no surprise, the people that are opposing it in America are the doctors and the insurance companies. But after its introduction here, any political party going to an election in this country saying that they were going to even cut the budget of the NHS, let alone get rid of it, would be committing political suicide. They would just simply not get elected. It works here, and could be. I did a 5-part video series on YouTube responding to 30 seconds of Sean Hannity. It took that long to clear up the mess that he had made. And in amongst the information that I provided and the rebuttals that I made, per capita, per person, it costs us about half what it costs you. And we cover everyone. Anyway, let's not get involved in that. I noticed the time. We've got 2 more questions to go.
I think it's you won't find me defending healthcare delivery in the United States.
No, well, it can't be done. And one of the most extraordinary, abhorrent scenes I ever saw was one of the Tea Party rallies when there were people goading. This was in Ohio, by the way. It's on YouTube. They were goading someone it was in the rally in Ohio, and there was someone with Parkinson's disease sat in front of them in the street with a cardboard placard. And they were yelling at him. They were treating him with such discourtesy. They were throwing dollar bills at him. How America or an American can do that to one of their own countrymen?
And to anyone.
Anyone.
And to anyone with Parkinson's disease. Absolutely. It's shameful.
Yeah.
And we have free speech, but I wouldn't mind arresting that individual and charging him with a hate crime and letting it work its way through the court.
If only.